So today we're going to talk about the Raya Plan. Now, before I dive into this thing, right, I really want to highlight a few things. First thing first, the Raya Plan is not for everyone. This is really something that I believe everybody would have to understand, that the Raya Plan is not for everyone. Reason being, everybody has limited resources. When it comes to monetary form, of course, we have to actually weigh which one is more important for now. So I just had some discussion today with some of my coaching clients. Like one of them that are definitely not supposed to spend a lot right now is, I have a client who is in the ergonomic chair industry. Okay, and ergonomic chair is it's something quite expensive, high ticket. First thing first, and second thing is it's not really related to the Raya. Okay, so I mean, I would not spend time talking about explaining what's Raya, because who registered for this are actually those who stays in the Southeast Asia region. So we all do understand that this is actually a yearly festive for our Muslim friends. So what do they buy? Okay, like, and another client of mine who is in the apparel industry, doing fantastic, the best year ever. And in fact, it actually started way earlier. Okay, later when we talk about the what do we call the duration planning, we're gonna dive deeper into the duration and all that. But basically, I just want you to put some time to think about your business. If you were to go for the Raya Plan, I mean, first thing first, it's not for everyone. Even if you are in e-commerce as well, you have to understand. I mean, I believe this is not your first year in your business, but even if you're in the first year, you probably can observe around, like, based on your previous experience, based on whatever, whether your product will be trending in, during this Raya period or not. Like, for example, I actually observe jewelry, yes, but to a certain extent. And F&B, no, unless you're selling some baking supplies. But even baking supplies, you need to end even way earlier. When we talk about we're going to talk about the start and end time of the campaign. Okay, there are certain products you might even want to end earlier. Like, for example, when we talk about the baking materials or baking supplies, right? Like flasks, like baking molds and stuff like that, right? So this is the stuff that they do before Raya, and they will stop doing it maybe 2 to 3 weeks before Raya, because the preparation is actually done ahead. So the demand for this product will actually fade away, when it comes closer to the Raya. And these are all the things you have to take into consideration. So if you have been running ads, or if you have been selling whatever you're selling right now for years now, you definitely would understand what I'm talking about. But first thing first, take a closer look at your business, whether this is something that you need to really push for it. Because as we all understand, when it comes to Raya time, especially if you're in the market that, really like competitive, like apparel, like jewelry, like, anything that is related to Raya, the competition is going to be quite extensive, and your CPM is going to come up. So when your CPM come up, you expect, when CPM come up, everything comes up, right? Eventually, let's say, for example, you used to have a CPM of maybe like $5, for example, and now it turns into like $10. That means you need to pay twice to reach as many people as you used to be. So that's the logic behind. So you need to understand whether you need to hedge for this or not. And for those businesses who are not really related to the Raya, so what you can consider doing is you can actually slow down, or you play against the tide, or as in, like, when everybody's rushing in, you retreat for a while, as in, like, you probably can maintain a minimum amount of spend to go through that period where the CPM is going to be real high, and you come back in when everybody retreats. So it's just really the matter of strategy planning that you're actually having in place. So the training today hopefully gives you a better understanding. And I don't actually intend to make this a very complicated and extensive one. It's really all about reminding you about what to do, because I've been talking about Raya sale for years. And this is the first year we really open a class and talk about the deep dive through about the strategy planning step by step, and even to the extent of going into the ads manager and talk about the setup of each ad set. So this is really about helping you to really grasp the idea. And after we learn this Raya plan, you have to understand that this is really suitable for you to apply in any of your whatever festives coming in or whatever sales season that may apply. So take this as one step at a time that we will be, like practicing and getting better at what we do right now. Okay. So let's take a look at who are here. So we have Kevin, Sally, Chiwai, Jing, and Jeremy. So what's up? And Chiwai is asking how bad or great the impact is on your CPM with your ads campaign. Has nothing to do with the competitiveness of the Raya campaign products. It depends. Okay, I would say when it comes to the peak, you probably will see, like probably fluctuation of about 30 to 50% of your cost. So let's say if you used to be like 10, you probably will see like maybe 15. That is tolerable, I would say. But anything beyond 20, which is double, I would say this is the time that you have to probably consider, because CPM is just one thing, right? CPM comes high, but if the audience is really like, let's say if you're doing lead gen, the CPM is coming up like from 10 to 20. But then again, the results is coming in. I would say there's no reason to stop running it. But if the CPM is coming up high and the CTI is dropping and the result is flattening, I would say it's probably time for you to actually reduce the spend. So there is no really a benchmark. It's really based on your observation to judge where are you, with your campaign. Okay, make sense? Now I'm just gonna dive into the campaign itself. I will be sharing the screen, and we're gonna start from the first slide over here, which is the Raya Plan. So let's see. I have everything here. Cool. Okay. So the Raya Plan, what are we gonna cover today is this is gonna be like an hour-ish kind of training, depending on how deep we dive into. And if you have any questions, feel free to pop in the chat, because I'll be looking at the questions, and as and when I see necessary or I deem fit, I'll just jump right in. Okay. So the Raya Plan. Oh, you like this, huh? I got it done in like 3 minutes. Yeah. Call me. Yeah. The Raya Plan. Okay. So the Raya Plan. Facebook ads for Raya sale. So basically, this is where we, like we talk about how do we actually plan our campaign for the Raya sale, right? So what's covered here is first thing first, we're going to have e-commerce Facebook ad strategy for Raya sale. So when we talk about this, the strategy is applicable for whatever e-commerce business, whether you are selling on Shopee or Lazada, or even if you have an e-commerce website, anything actually applies. And when you're selling on Shopee or Lazada, whether you have CPAS or do not have CPAS, it does not matter. Okay, so it's just that basically it's totally applicable to any businesses, because this is really the time that the spending behavior is very, very much unified. Okay, then the next thing we're going to talk about is the campaign schedule and budget allocation. I'm going to share with you when we start the campaign, when we're going to stop the campaign, and when we're going to actually scale up for T1, when you're going to scale down for T1 and scale up for T2. I'm going to give you a general idea. Of course, when I do elaboration on the key points, I want you to start putting all these key concepts into your business. And I want you to start plotting down the dates and the times that you want to start pushing in, and the time that you want to slow down or probably adjust the strategy a little bit here and there. But even so, whatever I say, whatever I'm going to share with you later on is not really carved on the stone. All right. Like when I say like T2, we have to maintain T2 at this, like 20%, we just cannot. I did not say cannot. You see, when it comes to T2, I want to highlight here is when I say like, usually when we run the two-step funnel, we have the 80% on T1 and 20% on T2, right? T1 being the top of funnel, for those who are not familiar, meaning it's an ad that actually gathers or help you push in or pull in people who might be interested in your product or services. And these people very likely to click because they're interested, but they may not be buying as soon. So then we have a retargeting campaign, which is technically, we call it T2, or rather to certain people, it's the middle of funnel or bottom of funnel. Usually we do like 80%, we spend 80% on the T1 and 20% on the T2. So, but it's not carved on the stone, because you see, this is based on our general ratio of when you spend 80, you should be able to get enough or just enough people to come into your T2. And by spending 20%, it's quite sufficient. But when you have a very, very fantastic T1, like some of my clients are seeing it, they have a very good T1, okay, which is pulling in people like probably 1/3 of the price that we are expecting. That's why the T2 is really becoming a very big audience size. So when it comes to that kind of situation, it is time for us to scale T2. So it's actually not carved on the stone. There are opportunities for you to scale T2. Scale means, increase the budget in T2. We do not do that usually, because usually T2, 20% budget there is very sufficient. But there will be situation where we need to push up the budget. So when we come to that kind of situation, then we have to play along the line. So it's very much depending on your campaign situation. Nothing is carved on the stone. So you have to be aware that these are all based on, case by case basis. But what I'm going to share with you is really based on the generic level, as in like applicable to all businesses as, in general, and you have to do your adjustment accordingly. That's why, my Jason Nation members, you have your monthly session with me. I will encourage that you use the session to share with me your plan, and maybe we can actually look at the plan and see how we can actually improve it. And for those who actually bought this program, this workshop, you remember you have one session or one-on-one with me. 30 minutes, we're going to spend together to look at your campaign structure, your planning. The best would be if you have set up everything, all right? You have your campaign creative ready, set it up already, the campaign structure and all that. When I come in, I'll be reviewing the whole structure to give you more constructive opinion and suggestion. That would be the best. I don't want you to come in unprepared and say that, hey, I just went through the workshop, I do not know what to do. Then it will not be that optimized. I hope you get what I mean, right? Do something, then only we come to discussion. That would be best, all right? Because you have no time. You're going to start right now anyway. So yeah. So we're also going to talk about a little bit about the best practices for Facebook ads creative. This is based on my recent observations. Not entirely all of them are in the Raya sale so-called vertical, but I've been working with clients in e-commerce, and we have been experimenting some very interesting so-called experiments. And I want to share with you some of the very interesting outcomes that you can consider for your creative direction. And of course, after we understand everything, I'm going to quickly jump into the, let's say T1, this is how we set up the audience. T2, this is how we do it, and stuff like that. Okay. So that's pretty much what we're going to cover today. All right. I don't have a very long slide. As you can see, we have less than 20 slides over here. So it's really something that is on point. I just want to make sure that I get the message across. All right. Now, I want to quickly recap the two-step funnel, because I noticed there are some newcomers into my universe, who sign up for this program. So you may not be very familiar with my two-step funnel. I want to quickly run through this with you again. So the two-step funnel essentially is a framework where we will run at least, I'm not saying that it's actually at least 2 advertisements in definitely 2 ad sets or even different campaigns. Usually, if you're doing, let's say, e-commerce, usually we keep them within 1 campaign and split it into 2 ad sets. Okay. Now it's necessary to understand that way, because when let's say we go for conversion, for example, all right, and it's safe that we put everything into the same campaign if both are going for the conversion. But if you have one that is going for catalog sales, the other one that is going for conversion, then you probably want to split it into 2 different campaigns. You have to understand back again, right? At the campaign level, we decide the objective. All right. And at the ad set level, we define the audiences. And at the ad level, we define the creative. So each level has got its own control. So if we have both ad sets going for the same campaign objective, we put them under 1 campaign. But if we are going for different objective, we split them. But technically, T1 and T2 would actually fall under separate ad sets, whether it's with the same campaign or not with the same campaign. They must be separated. And when we are doing two-step funnel, another highlight here is we must be using ad set level budget optimization. I mean, this is actually referring if we're actually having the same campaign, but if you have different campaign, T1 campaign A, T2 campaign B, then of course, you can actually have your campaign budget. But I would still recommend to go for ad set budget optimization, because we might be adding layers into our T1 or even T2. So let's say, for example, if your T1 is doing very good, you want to add more money in T1, and you want to kind of introduce another T1, which is, say, for example, your lookalike audience. So imagine if you have your campaign budget optimization on, which means, let's say T1 currently you're spending 100 ringgit, for example, you want to come in and spend another 100 on the lookalike. But if your campaign budget is at the, your budget is at the campaign level, and it's very difficult for you to split. Yes, you can set the maximum and minimum capping, but it may not be optimum. But if we actually do like at set level, I would say this is 100, this is another 100. And when I want to scale both, I would just say like, oh, you scale this up, you scale this down. So much more flexibility. So you have to understand the difference. Okay, at set budget optimization, and yeah, that's the two-step funnel. At least we will have 2 ads, but we may have more than that. Later on in this training, I'm going to share with you how can we have multiple step 2. As in like, the T2. So I'm going to share with you that afterwards. So essentially, this is our T1 ad. Usually back then we will encourage people to use, like a slideshow. I would say if you do not have, a video, then you can actually combine multiple videos into a slideshow and, use that, because this is the best way for us to capture. Let's say if you watch this video, just now the video, watch up to maybe like 3 seconds, I will know that you are interested. I will deem you as interested. I'll pull you in. However, we have evolved the so-called the technique a little bit over the years. So now I do not really like, for example, I would say you can actually use any format of the advertisement, even single image. Why? Because we are actually using not just video view, not just click, but we are using engage campaign as audience qualifiers. Now, you have to understand the key concept of audience qualifiers, which is we use this action to define whether a person is interested in our product or services in our product or not. So let's say if you engage means what? Like, comment, clicking on the ad, sharing the ad, watch the video, everything is calculated as engage. So that is already covering those people who view and click. So we used to say that we need the video to target people who view, then only we can target people who click. But now we actually break everything to engage. So here's how it works. If you're selling on Shopee without CPAS, you can still build your 2-step funnel framework using engagement. So we will target people who engage with your, let's say your ad in the last 7 days, for example. On Facebook, create 1 custom audience for that. On Instagram, create 1 custom audience for that. So it's actually very straightforward. Okay, so we use the audience qualifier to define whether these people are interested in our product or not. So whether you engage means what? You click, all right? You watch the video. So basically, we also use this to exclude as well, as in like people who engage. In fact, nowadays, when we do exclusion, we do very lazy, simple exclusion, which is anyone who engage in the last maybe like 30 days, 60 days, we let them out. So that would effectively reduce our frequency to the best level. Remember, for T1 campaign like this, we need to have low frequency. Low, I mean lower than 2. Because we want to make sure that this advertisement constantly reaching new people. So we use all these audience qualifiers to make sure that we exclude these people from seeing the same ad. So that's the key concept. So this is your T1, all right? So we will define those people who engage and yet to purchase, then we will retarget them with another advertisement, which, this could be, usually this could be a carousel like this, like what we're having right now. So a carousel can be, like it could be your catalog if you have your CPAS, or if you're selling on your own website. But if you do not, if you can actually build, let's say if you have a Shopee store and you do not have CPAS, you can still target people who engage with your ad in the last 7 days, for example, to send them this advertisement and say that, I know you were here, but you are, like this is a 50 ringgit voucher. If you're selling on Shopee, then you will not be able to effectively exclude people who purchase. Not to the certain extent. You can actually, if you are, like hardworking enough, every day you export the people who purchase and, pull out their phone number and email addresses and import them into the customer list for exclusion. You keep updating the list every day. It's possible, but generally, I would say it's 7 days retargeting. It's actually not that important to exclude. But if you are targeting, if you have your e-commerce website, if you are running your CPAS, then definitely you can do this as your exclusion. So a little bit of tip over here. When it comes to your T2, right? Some people, when they set up their two-step funnel, you realize your T2 may not run. Now, there are a few rule of thumbs for T2 to run, which is the retargeting campaign. First thing first, based on our observation, you need to have at least 150 people in your audience to start, which means if you have been running ads for less than a week and you do not get more than 150 to 200 people who click on your ad, for example, then you may not get your T2 to start. That's why we use engagement. Like certain people, when they do catalog, let's say if you have CPAS, all right, you do your retargeting, you realize, wow, I'm not getting clicks because you're targeting people who view or added to cart in the last 7 days, right? But the problem here is you may not have enough people, because we talk about 7 days, it's actually quite tricky because, well, if you don't spend a lot, you may not get enough people. Really, it happens. So there are 2 tricks I want to share with you. First, you can lengthen the duration. Instead of 7 days, make it 14 days to make sure that your retargeting has more people. But this may not make sense if you're selling something that is fast moving or easily, like people can make decision easily. So if 7 days retargeting is still optimum for you, you can consider pushing in more budget on T1 to make sure that your T2 ticks. It gets enough people fast. Or alternatively, you can actually switch to target people who view your engage with your page or Instagram account in the last 7 days. That would effectively help you pull in more people into your T2. You get what I mean? So that's how we can actually play around and make sure that we push in more people into our T2 to get started. So here's the the step tier 1 and tier 2 again, right? Essentially, the tier 1 ad works as a bait. Okay, we use this to introduce our product to people who might be interested in our product or services. So once they have taken certain action, which is like namely engage, view, click, and even purchase, either one of these they do, they will not be seeing the T1 ad again. All right, and in turn, they will start seeing the T2 ad. For those who engage, view, or click, and yet to purchase, they will start seeing the retargeting ad. In this case, we usually use a standard 7 days retargeting to start. So 7 days retargeting would actually, these people would start seeing. So if you come in, remember the 7-day retargeting is a first in, first out, yeah? First thing first, these 2 ads go out, launch simultaneously. You do not launch the T2, the tier 2 1 week later, no. It has to go out, concurrently. Because the moment I see T1, I view the video and I click on the ad, I should start seeing T2 right away. I do not wait. You do not wait for this to happen. So it synchronizes. If I come in today, I will see the tier 2 for the next 7 days. If you come in like 6 days later, your 7 days starts from that day itself. So that's how things work. First in, first out. All right. So then, of course, we will exclude people who purchase. This is the best case scenario. If we have, everything set up in a proper way, if we have CPAS, if you have your e-commerce website, you have your catalog set up properly, then perfect. But even if you're selling on Shopee without CPAS, what is only missing is really to exclude people who bought from you. It may not be 100%, but you can still export the data and create a custom audience for that purpose on both your tier 1 and tier 2. But even you don't have that, you can still run your T1 and T2 because you still have engage, view, and click as your audience qualifier for both. So technically, you will still have an optimum 2-step funnel. So that's the 2-step funnel, all right? When we are actually running this advertisement, I also want to remind you that we will spend 80% on T1, the budget. Let's say if we spend 100 ringgit a day, we will spend 80 on T1 and 20 on T2, theoretically. We might adjust, okay? And then we will usually, observe normal results from T1. Normal means, I would say, probably the ROAS would not be like as fantastic. We usually target for 3 ROAS, 2 to 3 ROAS for T1. I mean, bottom line is we don't want to lose money. That's it. That's on the T1. Now, when it comes to T2, we usually aim for double of what we have on T1. So let's say your T1 is 3, we'll aim for 5 to 6, because this is where people are really interested in your product, will be targeted. Okay, so they will see the ad, and when you are running the ad for your T2, you make sure you punch, the key selling point or the promotion that you're having or whatever it is, to make sure that they get the message across and they take action right away. So that's the key concept when it comes to T2 and T1 and T2. All right, so that's what we do. All right, so this is the two-step funnel, and usually we expect better result on T2. So the moment we actually run the two-step funnel, we will actually observe the performance of the overall campaign by combining T1 and T2 metrics together. So let's say if your T1 is ROAS maybe 2.5, but your T2 ROAS is maybe like 6. Okay, but when we actually balance it up, we probably will see a ROAS about 4 or something. So by that, we improve our overall performance. That's how we aim the two-step funnel to perform. Okay, but for those who are new to two-step funnel, we will actually walk through the setup on the audience size only real quick. But then again, it takes a bit of practices. That's why I throw in the one-on-one session with you, because I want to make sure that you set it up at least to try, and we can actually look at it together. And even for all of you who have been with me for a while, if you're not confident, set it up nonetheless, and let's go through the setup together to make sure that you got everything right. Okay, so I want to quickly jump into the duration plan. Guys, if you have any questions, pop in the chat, yeah? Because I want this to flow. I don't want to drag, you know, I don't want to overrun. Okay, because we started at 9:30, I hope to end this by maybe not 10:30, but maybe before 11. Okay, so duration plan is actually very straightforward. I'm just going to quickly give it to you, right? First, we're going to start on the 8th of March. See, if you're running for two-step funnel, if you're aiming for the Raya sale, we're talking about the Raya sale right now, right? The Ramadan starts on the 22nd, and this is where people start really like into the mode of buying. And you have the prime time of 1 month, in fact, to actually do this promotion or whatever you have. In fact, all right, this is something new. If you have started, you probably start seeing some sales coming in already, because people actually start buying very early this year, to my surprise. My client, which are one of the ad I'm going to show you later, they're seeing average about 8 to 10 ROAS since mid-February. Fantastic. I think this is the best year ever for them, as I told you. And they are doing so well. And apparently people really start buying very early this year. So the latest you should start is 8th of March. But even that, right, you probably will start at the highest CPM already. You see, the key of starting early, if we can, is we would then be able to maintain, let's say we start our T1 early and the T2 early. I mean, we will have a T1 evergreen and T2 evergreen, right? And we may have other T2, which I'm going to share with you later. So let's say your T1, especially your T1, right? You start early and you start at the CPM of maybe 5. So when you are starting at 5, right? Even though one time, I mean, when we run deeper into the campaign period, right? We probably will see our CPM to come up to maybe like 10. But you will be observing, like, if you come like 5 to 10, if you start early because you started at 5, right? Because the campaign has matured and stabilized. Even the CPM increase, it will not be that bad, you know. You will not seeing suddenly like shoot up to maybe 20. But for those who come in at 10, for example, first thing first, you already come in at 10. You know, you came in at 5. You probably will see 8, but they come in at 10, and then eventually they may push to 15. So that's the benefit of coming in early if you can. Even if you can actually start a campaign and just put it there with minimum spend and let it, you know, like sail a little. It could benefit from that as well. Because the idea here is we want a campaign to learn earlier, as fast as possible, as early as possible. But of course, you need to test whether this makes sense to you. All right. I'm not saying that everybody would start making money 1 month even before the Ramadan. Ramadan is where the fasting starts. Our Muslim friends will fast for 1 month from 22nd of March to 21st of April, which is the first day of the Raya, which is their New Year. So when are we going to stop the campaign? We stop on the 14th of April, which is the Friday. Okay, the reason why you need to stop on 14, because this is the last day people would buy, because Saturday, Sunday, you know, it's like really the cutoff, and the shipping probably will pick up on Saturday, Sunday, and probably not. Even they pick up on Monday, they probably can make it on Friday, but you might miss some orders already. That's why usually towards the last week of the month, because you see, here's the thing. Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Thailand, I think even Indonesia alike. We are now a very educated, e-commerce educated countries. Okay, all these countries are very well educated about the e-commerce patterns and all that. All right. So when it comes to that kind of situation, Kevin say JNT 3 days, Shopee Express 10 days. Thanks for that. That's why some advisors to end the campaign 2 weeks before the Raya, which could be on the 7th. So 14 is really to push to the, like, you might miss something. Imagine you start on you need to end it on the 7th. That means from 8th of March to 7th of April, you only have 1 month to run. You don't have a lot of time, because as educated, e-commerce educated nations like Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Indonesia, and all, we know that it may not make it on time. So we will not risk it. If we actually shop late, we probably won't shop online. We will go to boutiques to buy because now everybody is already going out. So you have to understand the mechanism over here, just to make sure that you are not wasting money on times where people are no longer buying. So you need to observe. I'm saying 14th of April, you can actually start observing from the 7th of April, where if you start seeing your buying trends slowing down, you can already slow down your budget and keep reducing until, you can stop. In fact, whenever you feel you didn't right in between 7 to 14 April, you can end anytime in between, because when it's time to end, you end it. Do not drag and prolong, because you will be wasting budget. That's the key. All right. So this is really a benchmark. This is really a guideline, but you observe. Like I say, for the start, my client started on 15th of February, and up to today, I think they've made more than $500,000. Not too bad. Not too bad for a very boutique brand with only 2% running business. Fantastic. So yeah, so that's how things go. All right, and you stop on 7 to 14. So that's where you need to start planning. Look at the calendar, mark your dates and all that, and start planning, because today's 6. This is the latest I should run this campaign, because if I don't do it, if I do it later, then you probably will miss the mark. So you have 2 days to start. If you haven't really gotten started, you need to start planning right now. After today, on the 8th, you launch it. Do not do it later than 10. You might be missing the boat, because trust me, very competitive, especially if your industry is really into that, like apparel, like whatever, all this that is related to the Raya trend, right? Now, the budget plan. So I'm just going to come in real quick, right? So from 8 to 30 of March, we spent 80% on T1 and 20% on T2. That's our optimum normal duration. So 80-20, but of course, like I say, I'm not saying that you need to, like scale your T2 or whatnot, you observe. Like for my client, we were actually maintaining 80-20, but we had to adjust. We had to increase the T2 to 25% because we start seeing frequency dropping. Now, another benchmark I want you to write down. I didn't put it here. So for T2, for T1, we want to maintain our frequency at below 2, right? Below 2. Now for T2, in order for e-commerce campaign to work, because we are doing a 7-day retargeting, the frequency that we are aiming for is at least 3. At least 3. If it doesn't hit 3, increase budget. Okay, that's the rule of thumb. At least 3. So yeah, you do your plan. And we don't want to exceed 8. That's another benchmark over here. If it hits 8, reduce your budget. So that's how we do. Yeah, frequency T2, 3. T1 below 2. T2, 3, maximum 8. If below 3, we increase budget. If we reach 8, we reduce budget. That's how things play. Okay? Now, next, weekly. Thanks for the question, Kevin. Yeah, weekly. We observe weekly, not daily. Cannot do daily. Okay? Now, this is on the 1st to 14th. If you end early at 7, then I understand it's just 1 week. So 1st to 7 or 1st to 14th of April, we accelerate T2. So we accelerate T2 means we will be increasing our T2 budget. So, I mean, I'm actually going to talk about this a little bit later. But bear in mind, we might increase T2 because we will introduce multiple T2s, right? Because essentially for now, right? I mean, there will be one T2 for now. We will introduce another T2, which I'm going to talk about it later. But technically, on the 1st to 14th April, we will be increasing the budget on T2. So here's the rule of thumb, okay? But you write down this thing first. You guys can actually take screenshot or whatnot, or you can write down. I don't have a lot of words here, so it's very easy to follow. Okay, so that's the budget plan. Now, I want to dive in and talk about the creative. This is based on our observation. You have to be you have to really plan according to your product or services. I'm not saying that this applies to everyone, but I'm just saying that generally these are the performing creatives that works really well for us. So first thing first, in your copywriting, here's what I advocate lately. In fact, I've been advocating this for, in the past few months. I actually observe, through the pandemic, through what we call the accelerated digital evolution, everybody are very, very aware of advertisements, and they are kind of bored of those so-called, what do we call that? Like clickbaity or non-straightforward advertisement anymore. So based on our observation, in fact, in the past few months, it's very, very distinctive. That kind of advertisement that gets the point across the fastest usually works better. First thing first, your creative itself must be really tell people what are you selling. If you're selling product A, you don't, let's say, like for example, we sell product, let's say we sell clothes, for example. We don't tell people that it makes you feel warm, it keeps you whatever. We say that this is a t-shirt and how much. You get the idea. Get the message across right away. It's about telling your audience what is in for them, what do you want them to do. So this applies to your creative and the copywriting as well. So when it comes to copywriting, avoid something, like indirect. Go for something very straightforward and try to control within the first 2 lines. Because very, very, very little people really click on the see more to read whatever you have. If you write a whole long paragraph or even an essay over there, it doesn't make sense anymore. Okay? Yeah, so Kevin is saying 2 weeks before peak day, increase T2. 1 to 2 weeks, depending on what you call peak day. We call it really the final leg. Okay, like really, like final leg. Let's say if we end on 7, then it's 1st to 7. Peak day is Shopee term. Like peak day means 99, 10, 10. Those are peak days, right? Because this is where everybody will buy. But when it comes to e-commerce for Raya sale, it's different. People buy all the time. It just went. And we want to make sure that we cut off, I would say on the 7 or 14, those are cut-off dates. It's not peak day. That's not how I term it. It's not peak day. Peak day is, that peak day I understand. But for Raya, it's different. For Raya, it's very different. So that's in my opinion. So you need to understand the cut-off date, all right? So your advertisement must really highlight your offer, which is like, what is the offer that you have for them? And what do you want them to take? What action you want them to take right now? So for T1, I will always recommend to use, like video or slideshows plus collection if you can. Usually, okay, now collection, you have to play at your own risk, yeah? Because when it comes to collection, right? The thing about collection is this. Okay, the thing about collection is, let's say you will have a friction. A collection means it will become a friction. I'm going to show you, all right? Later on, you have to use this and observe very carefully. Sometimes work, sometimes don't. Okay, but usually for our T1, it's actually beneficial to use a video or slideshow if you can, because that usually works better. Usually, I'm not saying the carve on the stone, and pair it together with collection, it creates a very, very good experience. But recently, one of my clients tested single image and it works like crazy. So I'm going to show you those ads. Keep it to yourself. Please do not share it to outside people. These are all real clients with permission. They allow me to actually do an internal sharing with you guys. So you can actually observe what they do. right? And for T2, I usually use carousel. Now, when we use carousel, you can actually use Advantage Plus advertisement. I do not encourage to use Advantage Plus on T1 right now because it actually limits your ability to create other ads or other formats in the same ad set itself. It complicates things a little. So I sort of like stopped using Advantage Plus for T1 right now, and I actually use Advantage Plus for T2. You can either use just pure carousel or carousel, but with Advantage Plus turned on. Now, what's the difference right now? If you have Advantage Plus turned on, right, Facebook would actually shuffle your ad and create multiple different optimized format for different environment. So let's say when people are seeing your ad on stories, for example, it might become a multi-story advertisement, which is like story 1, story 2, story 3, like video 1, 2, 3, which actually belong to one ad, or it would become like a stack, let's say one story with multiple products, like on the same story itself, where people can click on anywhere to go. Advantage Plus helps you do this. So when it comes to T1, it may not work that well because if we have a message to send, if we try to educate people about what we do, let's say we have a video that showcases multiple products or something like that. I mean, if we turn on Advantage Plus, you may not be able to really effectively highlight your key so-called creatives. If you have a key image you want them to see, or you have a key video you want them to see, the shuffling, we have very little control because in fact, it's just really, you tell them, you do whatever. So after several tests and all that, we realized Advantage Plus works better for carousel for T2. I want to also talk about the audiences now. Basically, we would have multiple audiences here. All right. So when it comes to audiences, first, it's actually definitely T1. So when it comes to T1, let me go in and do this with you right now. Okay, so I'm going to go in to really walk you through about the setup a little bit. So when you're setting up your T1, okay, all right, so T1, let's say if we go for sales, let's say I'm referring to whether you have an e-commerce website or you have CPaaS. But if you do not have CPaaS, if you're selling on Shopee without CPaaS, then you go for traffic. Okay, so if you have, then you go for sales. Now we probably start with traffic right now anyway. So when it comes to traffic, okay, you need to make sure for traffic, yeah, this is only for people who actually sell on Shopee without CPaaS. You need to make sure the optimization, I'm going into the optimization itself. You go for traffic, and you go for website. Okay, I'm just going to do this real quick, website. All right. And then optimization, you make sure to select link click. If you're doing for Shopee without CPaaS, go for link click. You do not go for the other one, which is some people have landing page view, some people don't now. So link click is the right optimization for you. All right. So you spend, let's say if you spend 100 ringgit, then you put 80 over here. This is how it works. So you start on the day and you want to set an end date, you can. Because for this one, we probably need to end on maybe 7th of April, for example. Okay, so this is, but it's not necessary. We can actually adjust our, end date as we want. So you can do all the detailed targeting you want. I would not be talking about how should we find the right one and all that. There is no right answer for that. I assume you know your business. You got to do your own testing. I would say, generally, I usually recommend if you spend less than 100 ringgit a day, which is about $25 in Malaysia, you should actually target not more than 20% of the total population. So if you talk about all Malaysian Facebook users here, we have about 28 million. Your right audience should be below 5 million. If you're not spending more than 100 ringgit, should be about 5 million. That should be good enough for your T1. Then Advantage Plus placement, nowadays, I don't dictate that. In fact, you can actually select this because Facebook rarely show your ads to audience network and whatnot anymore. So if you do not want to dictate this, you can actually just let it go. And then after that, when it comes to ad, you can actually just do whatever you want, set it up, and everything is going to be fine. This is where we talk about other audiences. Okay, so we just done T1. Now, the next thing here is we want to actually create a T2, which is an always on T2, a 7-day retargeting. You need to set this up. This is a very important help that can actually help you improve your overall campaign performance. You want to target people who bought from you before, past customers. Let's say in the last 6 months or 1 year, you only have about maybe 1,000 people who bought from you. So if we run a 1-month campaign, right, we might actually start seeing the frequency coming up towards the mid or towards the end of the campaign. That means we have saturated the audience. We might see good ROAS coming in from the front end at the very beginning, but towards the end of the campaign, we might see the ROAS slowing down. What that means, actually, we have already saturated the audience. And when that happens, you can reduce the budget of this T2, which is an existing customer, and move the budget back to your existing T1. That's how we do it. So a little bit of adjustment that we will be doing over here. So that's that. Now, so this is what we call the final leg. Final leg means what? We want to add weight. 7 days always on, still continue. This still continue. All right. But this one is where we come in for the final bang and say that now, usually, actually, we will run this on the last 7 days of the campaign. So if we end this on the 14th, we start this on the 7th to 14th. But if we actually end on 7, we start this on the 1st and end on the 7th. Okay, so that's how we do it. So basically, we will set up another T2 where we retarget people who engage with our page in the last 30 days. Okay, and which means because on the 1st to 7th, right, we've been running ads from the 8th. So by the time we should have been running for like about 3 weeks already. So 30 days makes sense. We will be targeting everybody who actually started at the very beginning. So we will then send a message and say that final leg. Okay, this, buy now before it ends. Shopping, you just put the call to action like, final call, last call, promotion ends soon, or stock is running out or something like that. You just keep pushing for that thing. So that's how we actually push this thing. So 30 days retargeting makes sense. And this one, we will run concurrently with this T2-1, which is effectively, we will have 2 T2s running. So let's say if we are spending 20% here, we might be spending 20 to 30% on this one, which means this is how we actually scale up the T2. It will then become 50%. That's how it works over here. Okay, so this is how things work for the setup. I would recommend that you set it up. Then we can actually go in and see the setup if there's anything we can observe together. So that's that. Okay. Yeah, Kelvin, high CTR per result. I saw that. I was going to talk about that, but anyway, that happens. It happens. That probably means your ad is pulling in the wrong people. They had no purchase intent because your ad, I saw, your ad is only showing people playing it. You are not saying that you're selling the product. It could be a little bit misleading. I would say it's beneficial to test different direction and see whether it gets you better result. Pulling in wrong people, I've seen so much. TikTok-ish ad, getting a lot of clicks and all that, but these are all people who are actually there to watch the video or to see the pretty girl. Yeah, they have no purchase intent. Doesn't make sense. Anything, just let me know. And remember, schedule a call for those who bought the program, and Jason Nation members, please use your session to go through your campaign and we can actually see if there's anything that we can rectify and do better.